The fall is usually stacked for new releases. You have a bunch of typical heavy hitters along with plenty of smaller titles that get overlooked. So I wanted to highlight some new games, both big and small, that are coming out this season. The first one up is Undetected. This Metal Gear Solid indie looks like the type of game that I want right now, and I didn't even know I needed it. Instead of framed like a more modern stealth title, this looks like it was made with the PS1 era in mind. On the surface level, it seems like it comes with a good amount of stealth options. You need to stay in the shadows, be mindful of light sources, along with even needing to see if you're leaving footprints behind for enemies to find. Something else that is interesting is you will need to not only pay attention to not being seen, but not being heard as well. Apparently most actions can cause some manner of sound, and this can create some intense situations where you are trying to time your movements and actions to progress without getting caught. According to the Steam page, the focus is on non-lethal force, so you won't be turning this into a shooting gallery. And for progression, rescuing POWs can increase your stats. The trailer makes a compelling argument to try this one out, especially for those looking for a new stealth game. Sadly, this is a genre that most big developers and publishers tend to stay away from today. We haven't had a new MGS, Splinter Cell, Siphon Filter, Tenchu, or even Thief in years. And when we get stealth in many big games, it's usually the basic crouch stealth, which is fine as an option in those games, but I miss those stealth-focused titles, or where stealth played a bigger role like in the recent Deus Ex games. Undetected looks to scratch that itch, but it does come with some caution. Indie games can be a great place to find titles to help fill a hole in a market, like the stealth genre, and they can look really good from some of their trailers. But I have played many that looked good on the surface level, and ended up not being able to make good on their promise. My hope is that this is something I can recommend rather than something I tell people to skip, so I'm hoping for the best. Now this delightful first-person shooter came out of nowhere, and now I only want to play more of it. On Steam, you can find the demo for Agent 64, and it's absolutely delightful. The demo itself is one of the best things I have played this year. It's a solo-developed game that is heavily inspired by GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, and Time Splitters. When it comes to the gameplay, it immediately feels familiar to anyone who has played any of these classic games. It is a nice mix of a classic design in a completely new shell. There's nods in the demo like the bathroom part from GoldenEye, but I am eager to explore more of this world. Agent 64 features additional objectives based on what difficulty you select. This means that if you play the level on 3 different difficulties, it will be slightly to significantly different, and this is something that I hope continues in the full release. For example, when I played through on easy, I needed to find a key card to open a door. On normal, I went to the very same spot to find the card, but it wasn't there. I also had a new objective where I needed to rescue hostages. After rescuing the last hostage, it's revealed that he can open the door for you, and that there is no key to be found. This was a really fun twist on that level and showed how the game will hopefully have more of these little surprises. Minute-to-minute combat is great, with controls, sound effects, and impact all being really good. This looks, feels, and plays like GoldenEye, but it's all wrapped up in a new IP. I can't wait to check it out when it launches in early access later this year. From the developers of the recent run of Shadow Warrior games comes an action-adventure game that blends a western with supernatural elements. At first glance, this sort of looks like a third-person Darkwatch, and I personally think that sounds awesome. From a gameplay standpoint, it seems to be blending elements of PS2 action games with third-person shooter elements. The developers have cited Devil May Cry as one of their inspirations, and it definitely shows. As noted, I am thrilled that this is potentially going to be more of an action game, since this is a genre that we don't see enough of outside of Devil May Cry. We used to get new Ninja Gaidens, the older style God of Wars, among others. But now it's either a loot-based RPG action-adventure, or a Souls-like experience. And while I enjoy both of those types of genres, just like with the stealth-focused games, I miss these types of action titles. One aspect that I'm excited about is how the entire game can be played in both single and co-op play. I wonder how combos will work with a friend. Could you hit an enemy in the air and then have your friend continually juggle them by shooting at them? I hope this ends up being good, as there's a lot of potential, but I have a feeling that even if this title is good, it's going to get overlooked because of its release date. Originally it was supposed to come out in September, which honestly would have been a good time for it, but now it's coming out at the end of November after all the big games. So my hope is that this turns out to be good, and if it is, hopefully it gets the attention that it deserves. I definitely plan on covering this. I'm a sucker for westerns, and this looks like it was made for me. Shootaz, Blood and Teeth looks like a fun side-scrolling shooter. While I don't really know much about the Warhammer 40k universe, I very much enjoy many of their games, from the ARPG Warhammer Chaosbane to the underrated Space Marine title. I had a chance to play an early demo of this, and the action was solid. Fun weapons and over-the-top violence. It seems like it's a bit more tongue-in-cheek, which I appreciated. The chances of this being fun is pretty good, considering that it's the same studio that made Guns, Gore, and Cannoli. I really enjoyed both of those games. Great art style, humorous action, and perfect for co-op. Nintendo is usually the one dominating the handheld space, but when Sony was trying to come into that market, I really liked what they had to offer. The PSP has many gems on it, and sadly Sony, along with many other companies, has not bothered to port many of those games over to modern systems. I'm still waiting for Sony to show Pursuit Force some more love. Easily one of the best games on the system was Crisis Core. This acted as a prequel to the original Final Fantasy VII, and now it's being remastered for modern systems. Even after reading about it from Square itself, I'm a little confused on what this is. Some says it's a remake and others say it's a remaster. It seems like they are keeping the same story and adding new stuff to it. The combat system seems to be mostly the same, with elements from Final Fantasy VII Remake added in, along with an improved UI. Now when it comes to the stuff they are adding in, I wonder if this relates to what occurred in Final Fantasy VII Remake and then the future sequels. I really enjoyed the original Crisis Core as it had a more action-like combat system, impressive visuals for the handheld, and great music. My hope is that much of what made its original release special is retained with this new version, as this will be the one that will be more easily accessible over the PSP version. Honestly, the only thing I'm not crazy about is how Zack's voice actor is different from the remake. I'll get a better feel for the new one when I can sit down and play the game for a while, but even so, I wish that they brought back the original guy. Final Fantasy VII Remake was a nice surprise when it was released. It was very faithful to the characterizations to the original, by being part remake and part sequel at the same time. I had some issues with how the ghosts were used, but it was obvious that the creators behind it cared about the original game. Here's to hoping that this new Crisis Core measures up to the original. I was originally excited for Modern Warfare 2019. It looked like a true return to form for the campaign, and I was really interested in the multiplayer as I enjoyed the new gunfight mode. But what really excited me for it was the return of the co-op Spec Ops mode. I loved these missions in the original Modern Warfare 2 and 3. These bite-sized missions were exciting, along with a fun survival mode. But once I played Modern Warfare 2019, I was really disappointed with what it had to offer for the co-op. I really enjoyed the campaign, and while the multiplayer had a camping problem, I never got tired of playing Shipment. But when it came to the Spec Ops side of things, I was very disappointed. First, there was a new long-form version of them, and conceptually this was pretty cool. The maps were pretty big, but it had a lot of balancing issues. So much so that they felt impossible to even complete. Then there were the traditional missions that we would see from before, but again, these had balancing issues with an overuse of Juggernaut enemies. They also lacked fun situations to put the player in, or even fun offshoots of the campaign missions. And lastly, survival made a return, but it felt like it was never playtested, as it was either too hard or eventually you could cheese it very easily, along with it not providing you enough time before waves to use shops or even use shops during waves. And what made this even more frustrating is that the co-op was never really corrected or fixed. I tried survival today and it's still disappointing. So when I saw some of the new information for the new Modern Warfare 2, I saw that Spec Ops along with raid-like modes are being included. I am hoping that it is better this time around. And on the campaign side of things, some of it got leaked, and it looks fun with enjoyable Michael Bay-like action. So while I feel burned by them because of the awful Spec Ops, I'm cautiously optimistic for the new one. I think the campaign will probably be fun, but I hope this is a return to form for Spec Ops. While this isn't a new game, it was a pleasant surprise when announced that this N64 classic would be coming to modern systems. GoldenEye is set to come to the Xbox family of consoles, along with the Switch. I actually played the original recently and it still plays great today. The shooting is satisfying with plenty of weapons and reactive enemies. What will be jarring to some new players is the layer of problem solving and exploration that is very hands-off, but honestly this is what makes it a breath of fresh air to play again today. Now when this was announced, I felt like this would be a great great opportunity to feature online for the multiplayer. Many have fond memories of the multiplayer and probably sunk more hours into that with friends even more than the campaign. But then something odd was featured within this announcement. So on the Switch there will be online options for multiplayer, but the Xbox version will not have any. From what I understand, this is the same GoldenEye game, but different versions of it. Apparently the Switch version does something to trick it into thinking to be able to play online. Either way, I feel like if you're going to re-release this, you should add the option for online, and especially have that available on the Xbox. Either way, I'm excited to see this come back. So those are some new titles coming out this fall and winter that I'm looking forward to. What games are you looking forward to for the rest of this year, and let me know in the comments below. If you're interested in being notified of new videos, please hit the subscribe button and bell. And if you would like to support the channel and get early access to content, please check out my Patreon. All of the links will be at the end of this video and within the description. And thank you very much for watching.